Welcome back, everybody, for Henry V, Act 4. The French are chomping at the bit, as they say, to get at the English because they know they're sick and tired and they can't put up much of a fight. And at the end of Act 3, Orleans said, "It is now 2 o'clock. But let me see, by 10 we shall have each 100 Englishmen." Okay, in Act 4, we're going to go back over to the English camp and find out what's going on. But first, we have a message from our narrator, the prologue. And he says, "Now entertain conjecture of a time when creeping murmur and the pouring dark fills the wide vessel of the universe. From camp to camp, through the foul womb of night, the hum of either army stilly sounds, that the fixed sentinels almost receive the secret whispers of each other's watch. Imagine it's nighttime, and the two camps are so close together that you can hear the whispers from the neighboring camp, the English and the French. Fire answers fire, and through their paly flames each battle sees the other's umbered face. Steed threatens steed in high and boastful neighs, piercing the night's dull ear. And from the tents the armorers, accomplishing the knights, with busy hammers, closing rivets up, give dreadful note of preparation. You can hear the armorers getting everyone's armor and weapons ready. And when you hear that sound, you know what happens next. The country cocks do crow, the clocks do toll, and the third hour of drowsy morning name. Proud of their numbers and secure in soul, the confident and over-lusty French do the low-rated English play at dice, and chide the crippled, tardy-gated knight, who, like a foul and ugly witch, doth limp so tediously away. The French feel like the knight is like some old lady who's just limping along, going so slowly, because they're so eager to get at the fight. The poor, condemned English, like sacrifices. By their watchful fires sit patiently, and inly ruminate the morning's danger, and their gestures sad, investing lank, lean cheeks and war-worn coats, presenteth them unto the gazing moon so many horrid ghosts. Oh, now, who will behold the royal captain of this ruined band, walking from watch to watch, from tent to tent? Let him cry praise and glory on his head, for forth he goes and visits all his host, bids them good morrow with a modest smile, and calls them brothers, friends, countrymen. And in the middle of these depressed soldiers, Henry walks around from tent to tent, encouraging them. Upon his royal face there is no note how dread an army hath enrounded him, nor doth he dedicate one jot of colour unto the weary and all-watched night, but freshly looks and overbears the tate with cheerful semblance and sweet majesty, that every wretch, pining and pale before, beholding him, plucks comfort from his looks. The soldiers, the captains, are very gloomy before he comes, but after they see him, they take courage. A largesse universal like the sun, his liberal eye doth give to everyone, thawing cold fear, that mean and gentle all behold, as man worthiness define, a little touch of Harry in the night. And so our scene must to the battle fly, where, oh, for pity, we shall much disgrace with 4 or 5 most vile and ragged foils, right ill disposed and brawl ridiculous, the name of Agincourt. Yet sit and see, minding true things, by what their mockeries be. Once again, the prologue tells us, we're only going to have a few soldiers and a few weapons. It's a mockery of this battle of Agincourt that we're about to act out for you on a stage. Okay, scene 1. We are still at the English camp that night, and the king is speaking to the Lord of the Earl of Gloucester. "Gloucester, 'tis true that we are in great danger. The greater, therefore, should our courage be. Good morrow, Brother Bedford. God Almighty, there is some soul of goodness in things evil, would men observingly distill it out. For our bad neighbor makes us early stirrers, which is both healthful and good husbandry. There's something good in every bad thing. Like, the fact that the French army is right next door, makes us get up early. And that's healthy. Besides, they are our outward consciences and preachers to us all, admonishing that we should dress us fairly for our end. They also do something else for us. They remind us we're very well likely to die very soon, and they make us want to get right with God. Thus may we gather honey from the weed and make a moral of the devil himself. Good morrow, old Sir Thomas Erpingham. A good soft pillow for that good white head were better than a churlish turf of France. Not so, my liege. This lodging likes me better, since I may say, now lie I like a king. 'Tis good for men to love their present pains upon example, so the spirit is eased. And when the mind is quickened out of doubt, the organs, though defunct and dead before, break up their drowsy grave, and newly move with casted slough and fresh legerity. Henry said something that's really true, and we know to be true, that when the spirit is eased, when you have a good attitude, like Erpingham, you know what? I can say, I'm sleeping tonight like a king, because he's sleeping just like Henry, out in an army camp. And Henry says, you know, if you have the right attitude, it eases your spirit, and then when your spirit is eased, your body tends to follow. The organs break up their drowsy grave and move. Lend me thy cloak, Sir Thomas. And the king puts on Sir Thomas's cloak. Brothers both, commend me to the princes in our camp. Do my good morrow to them, and anon desire them all to my pavilion. We shall, my liege. Erpingham says, shall I attend your grace? Do you want me to go with you? No, my good knight. Go with my brothers to my lords of England. I and my bosom must debate a while, and then I would no other company. And Erpingham says, the Lord in heaven bless thee, noble Harry, and they all leave him alone. The king says, God have mercy, old heart, thou speaks cheerfully. And up comes Pistol. Pistol is the night guard. Chez vous là. And he's trying to ask in French who goes there, but his French is very bad. The king says, a friend. Remember, guys, once upon a time, Henry was his friend. Pistol doesn't know who it is. It's just his job to find out who's walking around the camp at night. He's the guard. Discuss unto me. Art thou officer, or art thou base, common, and popular? I am a gentleman of a company. Trailst thou the puissant pike? In other words, are you in the infantry? Even so. What are you? As good a gentleman as the emperor. Then you are better than the king. The king's a bawcock and a heart of gold, a lad of life, an imp of fame, of parents good, of fist most valiant. I kiss his dirty shoe, and from heartstring I love the lovely bully. He doesn't know he's talking to Henry. What is thy name? Harry Leroy. Remember, Harry is a common nickname for Henry, and Leroy means the king in French. Leroy, a Cornish name. Art thou of Cornish crew? No, I'm a Welshman. Knowest thou Fluellen? Yes. Tell him I'll knock his leek about his pate upon St. Davy's Day. Right? You have to know that the Welsh have a custom on St. David's Day, St. Davy's Day. They wear leeks, just like a large green onion, in their caps. I do not know why, but they do. And so he says, yeah, I hate Fluellen. Why? Because he wouldn't send to reverse the order to execute Bardolph when Pistol asked. And so he says, you tell him I'll take his leek out of his hat and whack him over the head with it. The king says, do not you wear your dagger in your cap that day, lest he knock that about yours. Are you his friend? And his kinsman, too. A figo for thee, then. I thank you. God be with you. My name is Pistol called. It sorts well with your fierceness. All right. The king moves aside, and in come Fluellen and Gower. Gower calls him, Captain Fluellen. So in the name of Jesus Christ, speak fewer. It is the greatest admiration in the universal world when the true and ancient prerogatives and laws of the wars is not kept. If you would take the pains but to examine the wars of Pompey the Great, you shall find, I warrant you, that there is no tittle-tattle nor pibble-pabble in Pompey's camp. I warrant you, you shall find the ceremonies of the wars, and the cares of it, and the forms of it, and the sobriety of it, and the modesty of it, to be otherwise. Excuse me. Sorry. Llewellyn's telling Gower, keep your voice down. Don't you study war? You know, back in the Pompey versus Caesar war, you think they were talking loud in Pompey's camp? Gower says, why, the enemy is loud. You hear him all night. If the enemy is an ass and a fool and a prating coxcomb, is it meet, think you, that we should also, look you, be an ass and a fool and a prating coxcomb? In your own conscience now. Gower says, I will speak lower. I pray you and beseech you that you will. And they leave. The king comments, though it appear a little out of fashion, there is much care and valor in this Welshman. You know what? Llewellyn's kind of a character with his rules of the wars, but he's very valiant. All right, the king is still standing. Remember, he's wearing someone else's cloak, and it's dark. No one knows he's the king. And in come 3 soldiers, John Bates, Alexander Court, and Michael Williams. Brother John Bates, is not that the morning which breaks yonder? I think it be. But we have no great cause to desire the approach of day. We see yonder the beginning of the day, but I think we shall never see the end of it. They're going to die. Who goes there? The king says, a friend. Under what captain serve you? Under Sir Thomas Erpingham. A good old commander and a most kind gentleman. I pray you, what thinks he of our estate? What does he think our situation is? Even as men racked upon a sand that looked to be washed off at the next tide. He hath not told his thought to the king? No, nor is it meet that he should, nor it is not meet that he should. For, though I speak it to you, I think the king is but a man, as I am. The violet smells to him as it doth to me. The element shows to him as it doth to me. All his senses have but human conditions. His ceremonies laid by, in his nakedness he appears but a man. And though his affections are higher mounted than ours, yet, when they stoop with the like wing. Therefore, when he sees reason of fears, as we do, his fears, out of doubt, be of the same relish as ours are. Yet, in reason, no man should possess him with any appearance of fear, lest he, by showing it, should dishearten his army. King says, you know, it's a good thing that Sir Thomas doesn't tell the king, I think we're all going to die. Because the king is just a man. The king has ceremony. We're going to hear about this again in a minute. The king has robes of state and a palace, but really he's just a man. And if there's reason to fear, he fears just like a man. But if the king shows fear, it will dishearten his men. So he, more than anyone else, has to suck it up and put on a brave face. Bates says, he may show what outward courage he will, but I believe, as cold a night as 'tis, he could wish himself in Thames up to the neck. And so I would he were, and I by him, at all adventures, so we were quit here. You know, he might just be a man, but I bet he wishes he were just neck deep in the Thames River back in England right now, and I wish I was with him. Anywhere but here. The king says, by my troth, I will speak my conscience of the king. I think he would not wish himself anywhere but where he is. Then I would he were here alone. So should he be sure to be ransomed, and many a poor man's lives saved. I dare say you love him not so ill to wish him here alone. Howsoever you speak this to feel other men's minds. Methinks I could not die anywhere so contented as in the king's company. His cause being just, and his quarrel honorable, what better place is there to die than with the king? If his cause is just, and his quarrel honorable. William says, that's more than we know. Aye, or more than we should seek after, for we know enough, if we know we are the king's subjects. If his cause be wrong, our obedience to the king wipes the crime of it out of us. Is this a just war? they're asking. Don't care. If we obey our king, that is enough. And any crime there is in this war, it's on him. William says, but if the cause be not good, the king himself hath a heavy reckoning to make, when all those legs and arms and heads chopped off in battle shall join together at the latter day and cry all, we died at such a place, some swearing, some crying for a surgeon, some upon their wives left poor behind them, some upon the debts they owe, some upon their children rawly left. I'm afraid there are few die well that die in a battle. For how can they charitably dispose of anything when blood is their argument? Now, if these men do not die well, it will be a black matter for the king that led them to it, who to disobey were against all proportion of subjection. If this is an unjust war, then all those limbs and dead bodies are going to rise up at the last day and blame the king. The king now is going to give a very long talk. Because, they're telling the very man they're talking about, they're telling the king, this is going to be your fault. Every death here is on your head. He says, so, if a son that is by his father sent about merchandise do sinfully miscarry upon the sea, the imputation of his wickedness, by your rule, should be imposed upon his father that sent him. Or, if a servant, under his master's command, transporting a sum of money, be assailed by robbers and die in many irreconciled iniquities, you may call the business of the master the author of the servant's damnation. But this is not so. The king is not bound to answer the particular endings of his soldiers, the father of his son, nor the master of his servant, for they purpose not their death when they purpose their services. Besides, there is no king, be his cause never so spotless, if it come to the arbitrament of swords, can try it out with all unspotted soldiers. Some, peradventure, have on them the guilt of premeditated and contrived murder. Some, of beguiling virgins with the broken seals of perjury. Some, making the wars their bulwark, that have before gored the gentle bosom of peace with pillage and robbery. Now, if these men have defeated the law and outrun native punishment, though they can outstrip men, they have no wings to fly from God. War is his beetle, war is his vengeance, so that here men are punished for before breach of the king's laws, and now the king's quarrel. Where they feared the death, they have borne life away, and where they would be safe, they perish. Then if they die unprovided, no more is the king guilty of their damnation than he was before guilty of those impieties for the which they are now visited. He says, first of all, when you assign someone a task, and you don't intend it to end in death, but it does, it's not your fault they died. Not to mention, a lot of soldiers in this war have a checkered past, shall we say. Am I responsible for all their sins? If they die in their sins, am I responsible for it? Is the king responsible for that? Every subject's duty is the king's, but every subject's soul's his own. Therefore should every soldier in the wars do as every sick man in his bed, wash every mote out of his conscience, and dying so, death is to him advantage, or not dying, the time was blessedly lost wherein such preparation was gained. And in him that escapes, it were not sin to think that, making God so free an offer, he let him outlive that day to see his greatness, and to teach others how they should prepare. This is the job of every soldier, to make himself right with God. If he dies, he goes to God. If he doesn't, it's never a bad idea to get right with God. Williams is chastised. He said, "'Tis certain, every man that dies ill, the ill upon his own head, the king is not to answer for it." Bates says, "I do not desire he should answer for me, and yet I determined to fight lustily for him." The king says, I myself heard the king say he would not be ransomed." He said so, to make us fight cheerfully. But when our throats are cut, he may be ransomed, and we ne'er the wiser." The king says, "If I live to see it, I'll never trust his word after." "You pay him then. That's a perilous shot out of an elder gun, that a poor and private displeasure can go against a monarch. May as well go about to turn the sun to ice, with fanning in his face with a peacock's feather. You'll never trust his word after. Come, 'tis a foolish saying." The king says, "Your reproof is something too round. I should be angry with you if the time were convenient. Well, let it be a quarrel between us if you live. I embrace it. How shall I know thee again? Give me any gage of thine, and I will wear it in my bonnet. Then, if ever thou darest acknowledge it, I will make it my quarrel. He says, here's my glove. Give me another of thine. The king says, there. So they exchange gloves. So he says, we have an ongoing quarrel with each other. Says, well, how will I know you? And Henry says, well, give me your glove, and I'll give you mine. And when you recognize your glove in somebody's hat, you'll know this is the person you have the argument with. He doesn't know his argument is with the king. William says, this will I also wear in my cap. If ever thou come to me and say, after tomorrow, this is my glove, by this hand I will take thee a box on the ear. The king says, if ever I live to see it, I will challenge it. Thou darest as well be hanged. Well, I will do it, though I take thee in the king's company, even if I find you with the king. Oh, I'll fight. William says, keep thy word. Fare thee well. Bates thinks it's ridiculous that two Englishmen are fighting. He says, be friends, you English fools, be friends. We have French quarrels now, if you could tell how to reckon. The king says, indeed, the French may lay 20 French crowns to 1 they will beat us, for they bear them on their shoulders. But it is no English treason to cut French crowns, and tomorrow the king himself will be a clipper. This is a joke. A clipper is someone who clips metal off a coin, debases the coinage. And so the French crowns at the beginning they're talking about is money. But the French crowns they're going to cut are actually French heads. The king will be a clipper. He will be clipping the French heads, but he doesn't mean coins now. All right. The soldiers leave, and Henry keeps talking. Upon the king? Let us our lives, our souls, our debts, our careful wives, our children, and our sins lay on the king? We must bear all. Oh, hard condition, twin-born with greatness, subject to the breath of every fool, whose sense no more can feel but his own wringing. What infinite heart's ease must kings neglect, that private men enjoy? And what have kings, that privates have not too, save ceremony, save general ceremony? And what art thou, thou idle ceremony? What kind of God art thou, that sufferest more of mortal griefs than do thy worshippers? What are thy rents? What are thy comings in? O ceremony, show me but thy worth. What is thy soul of adoration? Art thou aught else but place, degree, and form, creating awe and fear in other men? Wherein thou art less happy, being feared, than they in fearing. What drink'st thou oft, instead of homage sweet, but poison flattery? Oh, be sick, great greatness, and bid thy ceremony give thee cure. Think'st thou the fiery fever will go out with titles blown from adulation? Will it give place to flexure and low bending? Canst thou, when thou command'st the beggar's knee, command the health of it? Henry says, what have I that other people don't have but ceremony? I've got titles and degrees and robes. It doesn't do you any good. What does ceremony give you? If I'm sick, will people bowing down to me make me well? Will my fancy robe make me well? No, it won't. Let me read that again. Canst thou, ceremony, when thou commandst the beggar's knee, when you command the beggar to kneel down, command the health of it? When ceremony makes the beggars bow down to the king, can ceremony make the beggar's knee healthy? No, thou proud dream, thou placed so subtly with a king's repose. I am a king that find thee, and I know 'tis not the balm, the scepter, and the ball, the sword, the mace, the crown imperial, the intertissued robe of gold and pearl, the farced title running for the king, the throne he sits on, nor the tide of pomp that beats upon the high shore of this world. No, not all these, thrice gorgeous ceremony, not all these, laid in bed majestical, can sleep so soundly as the wretched slave, who with a body filled and vacant mind gets him to rest, crammed with distressful bread. You know what? All that title and pomp and ceremony doesn't let me sleep as well as some poor man, filled with bread, no worries, because the king is bearing all the worries. Never sees horrid night, the child of hell, but like a lackey, from the rise to set, sweats in the eye of Phoebus, and all night sleeps in Elysium. That's what a poor man's life is like, someone without ceremony. Next day after dawn doth rise, and help Hyperion to his horse, and follows so the ever-running year with profitable labor to his grave. And but for ceremony, such a wretch, winding up days with toil and nights with sleep, had the forehand advantage of a king. The slave, a member of the country's peace, enjoys it. But in gross brain little wots what watch the king keeps to maintain the peace, whose hours the peasant best advantages. That peasant has no idea the hours of sleeplessness in the king that keep him safe. Okay, here comes Erpingham. My lord, your nobles, jealous of your absence, seek through the camp to find you. Good old knight, collect them all together at my tent. I'll be before thee. I shall do it, my lord. He leaves, and Henry's just said, I'll join them presently. But he's left alone one more time, and he says, Oh, God of battles, steel my soldiers' hearts, possess them not with fear. Take from them now the sense of reckoning. If the opposed numbers, pluck their hearts from them. Take away their ability to count. If counting up the numbers of the enemy, take away their courage. Not today, O Lord, oh, not today. Think not upon the fault my father made encompassing the crown. Remember, his father took the throne from Richard II. And Henry's starting to wonder if that was okay to dethrone the king and take over. So he says, I, Richard's body, have interred anew, and on it have bestowed more contrite tears than from it issued forth the drops of blood. 500 poor I have in yearly pay, who twice a day their withered hands hold up toward heaven to pardon blood. And I have built 2 chantries, where the sad and solemn priests sing still for Richard's soul. I've buried Richard in a tomb. I've got people praying night and day for Richard's soul. More will I do, though all that I can do is nothing worth, since that my penitence comes after all, imploring pardon. Gloucester says, my liege, my brother Gloucester's voice? I know thy errand. I will go with thee. The day, my friends, and all things stay for me. All right, scene 2. Flip over to the French camp. Now, there's a fair amount of French in this. When I hit the French, also later in the play, I might consult the footnotes. I'm sure my French pronunciation is terrible. But we are with the French camp. Remember, they are just ready to rock and roll. Orleans says, the sun doth gild our armor. Up, my lords. The Dauphin says, montez à cheval. It means mount your horse. My horse, varlet lackey. Ha! Oh, brave spirit. And the Dauphin says, begone, waters and earth, in French. And my footnote says, the Dauphin imagines himself riding above rivers and solid ground. And Orleans answers, nothing more? What about air and fire? Why not soar above all the elements? And the Dauphin answers again, the heavens. I'm going to soar above the heavens, cousin Orleans. Now, my Lord Constable, hark how our steeds for present service neigh. Even the horses are excited. Mount them and make incision in their hides, that their hot blood may spin in English eyes, and doubt them with superfluous courage. Ha! Stick your spurs in your horse's side, and if you draw blood out of your horse, it'll sprinkle the Englishman. Rambourg says, what? Will you have them weep our horses' blood? How shall we then behold their natural tears? I don't want to see them crying horse blood tears. I want to see them really crying. A messenger comes in and says, the English are embattled, you French peers. They're ready to fight. Constable, to horse, you gallant princes, straight to horse. Do but behold yon poor and starved band, and your fair show shall suck away their souls, leaving them but the shales and husks of men. The minute they see us, They're just not even going to be men anymore, just husks of men. They're going to be so scared. There is not work enough for all our hands, scarce blood enough in all their sickly veins to give each naked curtleax a stain, that our French gallants shall today draw out and sheathe for lack of sport. There's so few of them, we're not even all going to get a chance. There's not enough blood in the English army to go around. Let us but blow on them. The vapor of our valor will o'erturn them. 'Tis positive against all exceptions, lords, that our superfluous lackeys and our peasants, who in unnecessary actions swarm about our squares of battle, were now to purge this field of such a hilding foe, though we upon this mountain's basis spies took stand for idle speculation, but that our honors must not. He says, you know what? Our lackeys and peasants, our servants, could take these guys. And we could just stand on a mountain and watch, except it wouldn't be very honorable to do it that way. What's to say? A very little let us do, and all is done. Then let the trumpet sound, the tucket sonnets and the note to mount. For our approach shall so much dare the field, that England shall couch down in fear and yield. Grandpré comes in, and he says, why do you stay so long, my lords of France? Yond island carrions, desperate of their bones, ill-favoredly become the morning field. The English army is like carrion. They're like animals stripped down to bones. Their ragged curtains poorly are let loose, and our air shakes them passing scornfully. Big Mars seems bankrupt in their beggared host, and faintly through a rusty beaver peeps. The horsemen sit like fixed candlesticks, with torch staves in their hand, and their poor jades lob down their heads, dropping the hides and hips, the gum down roping from their pale dead eyes, and in their pale dull mouths the gimmeled bit. Life lies foul with chewed grass, still and motionless. Not only are the English looking depressed, but their horses are even looking depressed. And their executors, the knavish crows, fly o'er them, all impatient for their hour. Description cannot suit itself in words to demonstrate the life of such a battle, in life so lifeless as it shows itself. And the crows are flying over, waiting for a chance on their dead bodies. The constable says, they've said their prayers, and they stay for death. Shall we go send them dinners and fresh suits, and give their fasting horses provender, and after fight with them? What are we waiting for? We want to give them dinner? Let's go. The constable says, I stay but for my guard. On to the field. I will the banner from a trumpet take, and use it for my haste. Come away. The sun is high, and we outwear the day. All right. Scene 3, back to the English camp. Gloucester says, where's the king? The king himself is rode to view their battle. In other words, rode out to look at their army, the French army. Of fighting men, they have full 70,000. Exeter says, there's 5 to 1. The English are outnumbered 5 to 1. Besides, they're all fresh. They haven't been fighting recently. Salisbury says, God's arm strike with us. 'Tis a fearful odds. God buy you, princes all to my charge. If we no more meet till we meet in heaven, then joyfully my noble Lord of Bedford, my dear Lord Gloucester, and my good Lord Exeter, and my kind kinsmen, warriors all, adieu. Farewell, good Salisbury, and good luck go with thee. Farewell, kind lord, fight valiantly today, and yet I do thee wrong to mind thee of it, for thou art framed of the firm truth of valor. Salisbury said his goodbyes, if we don't see each other ever again on earth. Fight hard. And Salisbury leaves. Bedford says he is as full of valor as of kindness, princely in both. And in comes the king. Westmoreland says, oh, that we now had here but 1/10,000 of those men in England that do no work today. See, back in England, it's St. Crispin's Day. It's a holiday. And so people aren't working. All the people who did not come as soldiers with the army aren't working. And Westmoreland says, oh, if we just had a fraction of the people in England that aren't even working today, I'd feel a lot better about this fight since we're so outnumbered. The king says, what's he that wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland? No, my fair cousin. If we are marked to die, we are now to do our country loss. And if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honor. God's will, I pray thee, wish not one man more. By Jove, I am not covetous for gold, nor care I who doth feed upon my cost. It yearns me not if men my garments wear. Such outward things dwell not in my desires. But if it be a sin to covet honor, I am the most offending soul alive. No, faith, my coz, wish not a man from England. God's peace, I would not lose so great an honor as one man more, methinks, would share from me for the best hope I have. Oh, do not wish one more. Rather proclaim it, Westmoreland, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put into his purse. We would not die in that man's company that fears his fellowship to die with us. His Westmoreland, hey, don't ask for more people. He says, I covet honor. The worse the odds, the more the honor. And he says, in fact, if any of you don't want to stay and fight, I'll send you home right now. This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall see this day and live old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispian. Then he will strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother, be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England now abed shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, while any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispin's day. Salisbury comes in and says, my sovereign lord, bestow yourself with speed. The French are bravely in their battles set, and will with all expedients charge on us. The French are coming. All things are ready if our minds be so. Westmoreland says, perish the man whose mind is backward now. Thou dost not wish more help from England, coz? God's will, my liege, would you and I alone without more help could fight this royal battle. Why now, that hast unwished 5,000 men, which likes me better than to wish us one. You know your places. God be with you all. And there's a trumpet blast, and comes Montjoy, the French herald, one more time. And he says once more, I come to know of thee, King Harry. If for thy ransom thou wilt now compound, before thy most assured overthrow, for certainly thou art so near the gulf, thou needs must be inglooded. Besides, in mercy the constable desires thee, thou wilt mind thy followers of repentance, that their souls may make a peaceful and a sweet retire from off these fields, where wretches, their poor bodies must lie and fester. Montjoy, basically, I'm giving you one last chance. Do you want to surrender now and be held here for ransom? The king says, who hath sent thee now? The constable of France. I pray thee bear my former answer back. Bid them achieve me, and then sell my bones. Good God, why should they mock poor fellows thus? The man that once did sell the lion's skin, while the beast lived, was killed with hunting him. A many of our bodies shall no doubt find native graves, upon the which, I trust, shall witness live in brass of this day's work. And those that leave their valiant bones in France, dying like men, though buried in your dunghills, they shall be famed. For there the sun shall greet them and draw their honors reeking up to heaven, leaving their earthly parts to choke your clime, the smell whereof shall breed a plague in France. You know, some of us are going to live, and they'll get back to England. Some of us are going to die here, you're right. And you'll bury us here. You'll bury us not with honor, and I hope their bodies rot and the stench creates a plague in France. Mark then abounding valor in our English, that being dead, like to the bullets crazing, break out into a second course of mischief. killing in relapse of mortality. Let me speak proudly. Tell the constable, we are but warriors for the working day. Our gayness and our guilt are all besmirched with rainy marching in the painful field. There's not a piece of feather in our host. Good argument, I hope we will not fly. And time hath worn us into slovenry. But by the mass, our hearts are in the trim. And my poor soldiers tell me, yet ere night they'll be in fresher robes, or they will pluck the gay new coats o'er the French soldiers' heads and turn them out of service. If they do this, as if God please they shall, my ransom then will soon be levied. Herald, save thou thy labor. Come thou no more for ransom, gentle herald. They shall have none, I swear, but these my joints, which if they have, as I will leave them, shall yield them little. Tell the constable, you want something to ransom? You have to ransom my dead body. Montjoy says, I shall, King Harry, and so fare thee well. Thou never shalt hear herald any more. I fear thou wilt once more come again for ransom. York kneels down and he says, my lord, most humbly on my knee I beg the leading of the vanward. Can I be first in the charge? The king says, take it, brave York. Now, soldiers, march away, and how thou pleasest God dispose the day. All right, we're on the field of battle. There are trumpet blasts, and in comes Pistol, a French soldier that he has captured, and boy, it doesn't look very good when even Pistol can capture somebody, I think. But this is another place where we have tons of French, which I'm just going to follow my footnotes for. Pistol says, yield, cur. And the French soldier says, I think that you are a gentleman of high rank. And Pistol tries to speak French, but he can't. And he sort of babbles something back. He says, art thou a gentleman? What is thy name? Discuss. He's trying to ask the French soldier that he's captured, is he rich? Can he pay ransom? But the guy doesn't speak English, and Pistol obviously doesn't speak French. The French soldier says, oh, Signor Dieu, Signor Dieu, oh, Lord God. Pistol says, oh, Signor Dieu should be a gentleman. He thinks that's his name. Perpend my words, O Signor Dieu, and mark. O Signor Dieu, thou diest on point of fox, except, O Signor, thou do give me egregious ransom. He threatens him with the sword. I'm going to kill you unless you give me ransom. The French soldier says, oh, have mercy, take pity on me. But he says, me is moi. And Pistol says, apparently he thinks that's a sum of money. Moi shall not serve. I will have 40 mois, or I will fetch thy rim out at thy throat in drops of crimson blood. The French soldier says, is it impossible to escape the strength of your arm? But arm is bras. And Pistol says, brass, cur? Thou damned and luxurious mountain goat offers me brass? Oh, pardonnez-moi, oh, excuse me. Sayest thou me so? Is that a ton of mois? Come hither, boy. Ask me this slave in French, what is his name? The boy speaks French, and he says, listen, what is your name? The French says, Monsieur le Fer. The boy says, he says his name is Master Fair. Master Fair, I'll fair him and firk him and ferret him. Discuss the same in French unto him. The boy says, I do not know the French for fur and ferret and firk. Bid him prepare, for I will cut his throat. And the French soldier says, what's he saying? And the boy says, he bids me to tell you that you must prepare yourself, because this soldier intends to cut your throat immediately. And coupez votre gorge. And Pistol said, wait, coupe gorge, père ma foi, peasant, unless thou give me crowns, brave crowns, or mangled shalt thou be by this my sword. And the French soldier says, oh, I pray you for the love of God to pardon me. I am a gentleman of a good house. Preserve my life, and I shall give you 200 crowns. Pistol says, what are his words? The boy says, he prays you to save his life. He's a gentleman of a good house, and for his ransom he will give you 200 crowns. Tell him my fury shall abate, and I the crowns will take. And the French soldier says, little master, what does he say? And the boy answers, although it is against his oath to pardon any prisoner, Nevertheless, for the sake of the crowns you have promised, he is willing to give you your liberty, your freedom. And the French soldier says, on my knees I give you 1,000 thanks, and I consider myself happy that I have fallen into the hands of a knight, as I think the bravest, most valiant, and very distinguished gentleman of England. Oh, he is so not the most valiant, distinguished person in England. Pistol says, expound to me, boy. And the boy repeats, he gives you upon his knees 1,000 thanks, and he esteems himself happy that he has fallen into the hands of one, as he thinks, the most brave, valorous, and thrice worthy Signor of England. Pistol says, as I suck blood, I will some mercy show. And the boy says, follow the great captain. And Pistol and the French soldier leave. The boy says, I did never know so full a voice issue from so empty a heart. He knows Pistol's worth nothing. He's putting on a brave show, but he's worth nothing. But the saying is true. The empty vessel makes the greatest sound. Bardolph and Nym had 10 times more valor than this roaring devil in the old play, that every one may pare his nails with a wooden dagger, and they are both hanged. Nym has also been hanged for thievery. And so would this be, if he durst steal anything adventurously. Pistol hasn't been hanged because he's not a very good thief. He doesn't dare to steal anything very important. I must stay with the lackeys, with the luggage of our camp. The French might have good prey of us, if he knew of it, for there is none to guard it but the boys. The English don't have enough people, so there's no one to hide their baggage, their equipment, or to guard their baggage and their equipment except the boys that are, the servants in the army. So the luggage, the baggage, the supplies are all just back in the back, guarded only by boys, unarmed boys. And this boy says, the French could really take us out if they knew it was only boys guarding the luggage. All right, scene 5, still on the battlefield, and now we go look at the French side. The constable says, oh, diable, oh, a devil. Orleans says, oh, Lord, the day is lost, all lost. The Dauphin says, by God's death, my life, all is confounded, all. Reproach and everlasting shame sit mocking in our plumes. The French are not doing well. The day is lost, he said. Oh, méchante fortune. I'm looking. Malicious fortune. The constable says, well, all our ranks are broke. Oh, perdurable shame. Let's stab ourselves. Be these the wretches that we played at dice for? Is this the king we sent to for his ransom? Bourbon says, shame and eternal shame, nothing but shame. Let us die. In once more, back again. And he that will not follow Bourbon now, let him go hence, and with his cap in hand, like a base pander, hold the chamber door, whilst by a slave, no gentler than my dog, his fairest daughter is contaminated. So if no one will go back in the fight by me now, let him just go home and be the sort of guy who opens and closes the door while somebody comes and attacks his daughter. Constable says, disorder, that has spoiled us. Friend us now. Let us on heaps go offer up our lives. Orleans says, we are now yet living in the field to smother up the English in our throngs. If any order might be thought upon, the French ranks have broken in fear. He said, if we could get in order, we could turn this day around. Bourbon says, the devil take order now. Out to the throng. Let life be short, else shame will be too long. Right. Scene 6. Still on the battlefield, but now we're back with the English. The king says, well have we done, thrice valiant countrymen, but all's not done. Yet keep the French the field. Exeter says, the Duke of York, commends him to your majesty. Oh, lives he, good uncle? Thrice within this hour I saw him down, thrice up again, and fighting. From helmet to his spur all bloody was. Exeter says, the Duke of York greets you. He says, oh, is he still alive? I've seen him down 3 times and up 3 times. And Exeter says, in which array, brave soldier, doth he lie, larding the plain, and by his bloody side, yoke fellow to his honor-owing wounds, the noble Earl of Suffolk also lies. These 2 noblemen have died. Suffolk first died, and York, all haggled over, comes to him, where in gore he lay ensteeped, and takes him by the beard, kisses the gashes that bloodily did yawn upon his face. He cries aloud, tarry, my cousin Suffolk! My soul shall thine keep company to heaven. Tarry, sweet soul, for mine, then fly abreast, as in this glorious and well-foughten field we kept together in our chivalry. Upon these words I came and cheered him up. He smiled me in the face, wrought me his hand, and with a feeble grip says, Dear my lord, commend my service to my sovereign. So did he turn, and over Suffolk's neck he threw his wounded arm and kissed his lips. And so, espoused to death, with blood he sealed a testament of noble ending love. The pretty and sweet manner of it forced these waters from me, which I would have stopped. But I had not so much of man in me, and all my mother came into my eyes and gave me up to tears. The scene made me cry. I had too much of my mother in me. All my man went out, and I cried. The king says, I blame you not. For hearing this, I must perforce compound with mistful eyes, or they will issue too. But hark! What new alarm is this same? The French have reinforced their scattered men. Then every soldier kill his prisoners. Give the word through. Here's an alarm that the French have resumed some sort of order and are coming again. And Henry gives the order that every man who is taken a prisoner, kill the prisoners. We'll talk about this a little bit in class. All right. Scene 7, Fluellen and Gower. And Fluellen says, Kill the boys and the luggage? 'Tis expressly against the law of arms. 'Tis as errant a piece of knavery, mark you now, as can be offered. And in your conscience now, is it not? The French have discovered that only boys are guarding the baggage, and they've killed them all. They've snuck behind the lines, and they've killed them all. They're not combatants, and so Fluellen says it's expressly against the law of arms. It's not cool to massacre non-combatants, but the French did. Gower says, 'Tis certain there's not a boy left alive, and the cowardly rascals that ran from the battle had done this slaughter. Besides, they've burned and carried away all that was in the king's tent. Wherefore the king, most worthily, hath caused every soldier to cut his prisoner's throat. Oh, 'tis a gallant king. Aye, he was born at Monmouth, Captain Gower. What call you the town's name where Alexander the Pig was born? Remember, he's Welsh, and he says, instead of big, he says pig. This is not a mistake. We'll talk more about this in class, too. Alexander the Great. Why, I pray you, is not pig great? The pig, or the great, or the mighty, or the huge, or the magnanimous, are all one reckonings, save the phrase is a little variations. Gower says, I think Alexander the Great was born in Macedon. His father was called Philip of Macedon, as I take it. Now, Fluellen is now going to try to compare Henry to Alexander the Great. One born at Monmouth, one in Macedon. You know, they both start with M. I think it is in Macedon where Alexander is born. I tell you, Captain, if you look in the maps of the world, I warrant you shall find, in the comparisons between Macedon and Monmouth, that the situations look to you as both alike. There is a river in Macedon, and there is also, moreover, a river at Monmouth. It is called Wye at Monmouth, but it is out of my brains what is the name of the other river. It is all one. 'Tis alike as my fingers is to my fingers, and there is salmons in both. If you mark Alexander's life well, Harry of Monmouth's life is come after indifferent well, for there is figures in all things. Alexander, God knows, and you know, in his rages and his furies and his wraths and his cholers and his moods and his displeasures and his indignations, and also, being a little intoxicates in his prains, did, in his ales and his angers, look you, kill his best friend Clitus. This is a famous story about Alexander the Great, that they were drinking heavily, and Clitus and another guy got into an argument, and Alexander stepped in, and there were harsh words, and then Alexander ended up drawing his sword and killing his friend Clitus. Gower says, our king is not like that, like him in that. He never killed any of his friends. Fluellen said, It is not well done, mark you now, to take the tales out of my mouth, ere it is made and finished. You're interrupting me. I speak but in the figures and comparisons of it. As Alexander killed his friend Clitus, being in his ales and cups, so also Harry Monmouth, being in his right wits and his good judgments, turned away the fat knight with the great belly doublet. He was full of jests and jipes and knaveries and mocks. I forgot his name. Sir John Falstaff. That is he. I tell you, there's good men born at Monmouth. He says, remember how Alexander killed his friend? And Gower says, well, King Henry never killed any of his friends. Oh, yeah, remember Sir John Falstaff? That he gave the cold shoulder to, threw out of his presence, and then he sickened and died? Then he ends up saying, there's good men born at Monmouth. Gower says, here comes His Majesty. Harry comes in with some of the other lords and says, and see, he's just found out that the boys have been killed. I was not angry since I came to France until this instant. Take a trumpet, herald. Ride thou unto the horsemen on yond hill. If they will fight with us, bid them come down, or void the field. They do offend our sight. Those Frenchmen up on the hill, if they want to fight, you tell them to come down here. If not, tell them to leave. If they'll do neither, we will come to them, and make them scurr away as swift as stones enforced from the old Assyrian slings. Besides, we'll cut the throats of those we have, and not a man of them that we shall take shall taste our mercy. Go and tell them so. We're killing all the prisoners, and we are taking no more prisoners. Here comes Montjoy again, and remember, Henry said, stop coming and asking me if I want to be ransomed. But here he comes again. And Exeter says, here comes the herald of the French, my liege. Gloucester says, his eyes are humbler than they used to be. How now? What means this, herald? Knowest thou not that I have fined these bones of mine for ransom? Comest thou again for ransom? Montjoy says, no, great king. I come to thee for charitable license, that we may wander o'er this bloody field to book our dead, and then to bury them, to sort our nobles from our common men. For many of our princes, woe the while, lie drowned and soaked in mercenary blood. So do our vulgar drench their peasant limbs in blood of princes, and their wounded steeds fret fetlock deep in gore, and with wild rage yerk out their armed heels at their dead masters, killing them twice. Oh, give us leave, great king, to view the field in safety, and dispose of their dead bodies. The French herald is simply asking for an opportunity to go out and bury the dead, pick up their dead. The king says, I tell thee truly, herald, I know not if the day be ours or no, for yet a many of your horsemen peer and gallop o'er the field. The herald says, the day is yours. The king says, praised be God, and not our strength for it. What is this castle called that stands hard by? They call it Agincourt. Then call we this the field of Agincourt, fought on the day of Crispin Crispianus. Llewellyn says, your grandfather of famous memory, and it please your majesty, and your great-uncle Edward the Black Prince of Wales, as I have read in the Chronicles, fought a most brave battle here in France. They did, Llewellyn. Your majesty says very true. If your majesty's is remembered of it, the Welshmen did good service in a garden where leeks did grow, wearing leeks in their Monmouth caps, which your majesty know to this hour is an honourable badge of the service, and I do believe your majesty takes no scorn to wear the leek upon St. Davy's Day. I wear it for a memorable honour, for I am Welsh, you know, good countrymen. All the water in Wye cannot wash your majesty's Welsh blood out of your body, I can tell you that. God bless it and preserve it, as long as it pleases his grace and his majesty too. Thanks, good my countrymen. By Jesu, I am your majesty's countryman. I care not who know it. I will confess it to all the world. I need not to be ashamed of your majesty, praise be God, as long as your majesty is an honest man. He says, God keep me so. You know, once upon a time, Henry was not something to be proud of when he was young. He wasn't the model prince. And Llewellyn wouldn't have been so proud to be his countryman. But he is now. All right, in comes Williams with a glove in his cap. Remember, Williams encountered Henry by the firelight, and they've had a quarrel about whether the king would allow himself to be ransomed. And they've exchanged gloves and said, if you see somebody wearing this glove, I'm the guy you have the argument with. Williams comes in, and the king keeps talking, though. Our heralds go with him. Bring me just notice of the numbers dead on both our parts. Call yonder fellow hither, Williams. Exeter says, soldier, you must come to the king. The king says, soldier, why wearest thou that glove in thy cap? It please your majesty, 'tis the gage of one that I should fight withal if he be alive. An Englishman? And it please your majesty, a rascal that swaggered with me last night, who, if alive, and ever dare challenge this glove, I have sworn to take him a box on the ear. Or if I can see my glove in his cap, which he swore as he was a soldier he would wear if alive, I will strike it out soundly. The king says, what think you, Captain Llewellyn? Is it fit this soldier should keep his oath? Llewellyn says, he's a craven and a villain else, and it please your majesty and my conscience. The king says, it may be his enemy is a gentleman of some sort. Quite from the answer of his degree. What if his enemy is someone, a nobleman of a much higher station? Llewellyn says, though he be as good a gentleman as the devil is, as Lucifer and Beelzebub himself, it is necessary, look your grace, that he keep his vow and his oath. If he be perjured, see you now, his reputation is as errant a villain and as jack sauce as ever his black shoe trod upon God's ground and his earth in my conscience. I don't care who this guy's enemy is, it's going to be dishonor if he doesn't carry out the threat. The king says, then keep thy vow, Sarah, when thou meetst the fellow. So I will, my liege, as I live. He says, who servest thou under? Under Captain Gower, my liege. Llewellyn says, Gower is a good captain, and his good knowledge and literature in the wars. The king says, call him hither to me, soldier. Go call Gower. I will, my liege. And he leaves. The king turns, and he says, here, Llewellyn, wear thou this favor for me, and stick it in thy cap. And he gives Llewellyn Williams's glove. When Alençon and myself were down together, I plucked this glove from his helm. He claims he took it from a French nobleman. If any man challenge this, he is a friend to Alençon, and an enemy to our person. If thou encounter any such, apprehend him, and thou dost me love. He set Llewellyn up. Llewellyn's going to think, when Williams challenges him, that Williams is a friend to the French. Llewellyn, putting the glove in his cap, your grace does me as great honors as can be desired in the hearts of his subjects. I would fain see the man that has but 2 legs that shall find himself aggrieved at this glove, that is all. But I would fain see at once, and please God of his grace, that I might see. The king says, knowest thou Gower? He's my dear friend, and please you. Pray thee, go seek him, and bring him to my tent. I will fetch him. The king says, my lord of Warwick, and my brother Gloucester, follow Llewellyn closely at the heels. The glove which I have given him for a favor may haply purchase him a box on the ear. It is the soldier's. I by bargain should wear it myself. Follow, good cousin Warwick. If that the soldier strike him, as I judge by his blunt bearing he will keep his word, some sudden mischief may arise of it. For I do know Llewellyn valiant and touched with choler, hot as gunpowder, and quickly will return an injury. Follow and see there be no harm between them. Go you with me, Uncle of Exeter. All right. So scene 8, we are before Henry's pavilion, and Williams, still wearing the glove in his cap, says, I warrant it's tonight, you captain. Remember, he's gone to call Gower, and that he thinks, oh, I think he's calling you because he's going to knight you. And in comes Llewellyn. Llewellyn says, God's will and his pleasure, captain. I beseech you now, come apace to the king. There is more good toward you, peradventure, than is in your knowledge to dream of. And William says, sir, know you this glove? Know the glove? I know the glove is a glove. William says, I know this, and thus I challenge it. And he punches Llewellyn. Llewellyn says, Blood, an arrant traitor is any in the universal world, or in France, or in England. Gower says, how now, sir, you villain? Why did you just hit Llewellyn? William says, do you think I'll be forsworn? Stand away, Captain Gower. I will give treason his payment into blows, I warrant you. William says, I am no traitor. Llewellyn says, that's a lie in thy throat. I charge you in his majesty's name, apprehend him. He is a friend of the Duke Alençon's. In come Warwick and Gloucester, remember, who have been sent to make sure this little joke doesn't get out of hand. Warwick says, how now, what's the matter? Llewellyn says, my lord of Warwick, here is, praised be God for it, a most contagious treason come to light. Look you, as you shall desire in a summer's day. Here is his majesty. Here comes Henry in Exeter. How now, what's the matter? Llewellyn says, my liege, here's a villain and a traitor that, look your grace, has struck the glove which your majesty is to take out of the helmet of Alençon. William says, my liege, this was my glove. Here's the fellow of it. And he shows the other glove. And he that I gave it to in charge promised to wear it in his cap. I promised to strike him if he did. I met this man with my glove in his cap, and I have been as good as my word. Llewellyn says, your majesty here now, saving your majesty's manhood. What an arrant, rascally, beggarly, lousy knave it is. I hope your majesty is spare me testimony and witness, and will avouchment that this is the glove of Alençon, which your majesty is give me in your conscience now. The king says, give me thy glove, soldier. Look, here is the fellow of it. He says, Williams, give me back my glove. Give me the glove. Here is the fellow. He says, see, it's my glove. I have the match. 'Twas I indeed thou promised to strike, and thou hast given me most bitter terms, and you've insulted me. Llewellyn says, and please your majesty, let his neck answer for it, if there is any martial law in the world. Just execute him. The king says, how canst thou make me satisfaction? He says to Williams. William says, all offences, my lord, come from the heart. Never came any from mine that might offend your majesty. I never meant to harm the king or insult the king. The king says, it was ourself thou didst abuse. He says, your majesty came not like yourself. You appeared to me but as a common man. Witness the night, your garments, your lowliness, and what your highness suffered under that shape. I beseech you take it for your own fault and not mine. For had you been as I took you for, I made no offense. Therefore I beseech your highness, pardon me. The king says, here, Uncle Exeter, fill this glove with crowns and give it to this fellow. Keep it, fellow, and wear it for an honor in thy cap till I do challenge it. Give him the crowns. And Exeter gives him a glove filled with gold. And captain, you must needs be friend with him. He says this to Llewellyn. Llewellyn says, by this day and this light, this fellow has metal enough in his belly. Llewellyn likes a brave person when he sees it. And so, this guy was willing to have an argument with the king, even though he didn't know it was the king. And he was willing to uphold his vow to strike whoever he saw with the glove. So Llewellyn says, all right, you're not a bad sword. Hold, there's 12 pence for you. And Llewellyn gives him money too. And I pray you to serve God and keep out of brawls and brabbles and quarrels and dissensions, and I warrant you it is the better for you. William says, I will none of your money. Llewellyn says, it is with a good will. I can tell you, it will serve you to mend your shoes. Come, wherefore should you be so bashful? Your shoes is not so good. 'Tis a good shilling, I warrant you, or I will change it. And suddenly they're interrupted by an English herald. The king says, now, herald, are the dead numbered? Here's the number of the slaughtered French. And he gives him a paper, a list of how many Frenchmen are dead on the field. The king says, what prisoners of good sort are taken, uncle? Apparently, the king doesn't take the paper, but, one of his uncles, one of his noblemen takes it. So what prisoners? Charles, Duke of Orleans, nephew to the king, John, Duke of Bourbon, and Lord Boucicault. Of other lords and barons, knights and squires, full 1,500, besides common men. Oh, the king is reading the letter because it says, this note doth tell me of 10,000 French that in the field lie slain. Of princes in this number, and nobles bearing banners, there lie dead 126. Added to these of knights, esquires, and gallant gentlemen, 8,400, of the which 500 were but yesterday dubbed knights. So that in these 10,000 they have lost, there are but 1,600 mercenaries. The rest are princes, barons, lords, knights, squires, and gentlemen of blood and quality. The names of those their nobles that lie dead: Charles Delabreth, High Constable of France; Jacques of Chatillon, Admiral of France; the Master of the Crossbows, Lord Rambouillet; Great Master of France, the brave Sir Guichard Dauphin; John, Duke of Alençon; Anthony, Duke of Brabant; the brother to the Duke of Burgundy, and Edward, Duke of Bar; of lusty earls Grandpré and Roussy, Falconbridge and Foix, Beaumont and Marle, Vaudemont and Lestrade. Here was a royal fellowship of death. What is the number of the English dead? The herald gives him another paper. Edward, the Duke of York, the Earl of Suffolk, Sir Richard Ketley, Davy Gam, Esquire, none else of name, and of all other men but 25. O God, thy arm was here, and not to us, but to thy arm alone ascribe we all. When without stratagem, but in plain shock and even play of battle, was ever known so great and little loss on one part or the other. When has there ever been a battle where one side lost so many and the other lost so few? Take it, God, for it is none but thine. Exeter says, 'tis wonderful. The king says, come, go we in procession to the village, and be it death proclaimed through our host, to boast of this, or take that praise from God, which is his only. Llewellyn says, is it not lawful, and please your majesty, to tell how many is killed? Yes, captain, but with this acknowledgment, that God fought for us. Yes, my conscience, he did us great good. The king says, do we all holy rites, let there be sung non nobis and Te Deum, the dead with charity enclosed in clay, and then to Calais, and to England then, where ne'er from France arrived more happy men. And that ends Act 4. Join me again for Act 5. Bye.